Evelyn to Philip, December 6, 1944. Dearest Phil, I jammed yesterday's V-mail, not realizing that I had so much to write. You know, Phil, there's an awful lot to tell you about this estate business. A will existed that was 20 years old. That started the court proceedings. Well, honey, people whom my folks and I had looked upon as true friends turned up in court to testify against them. The worst one of all was Abe Feinberg, son of the two old sisters on Rockland Street, whom my mother bended all efforts on in getting him released from the army. He worked hand and fist with my Uncle Morris to do my folks out of their share, and my folks had much aggravation and expense as a result. Someday I'll tell you the complete story, and it sure is a story. I'm so glad things worked out to their benefit in spite of the obstacles. As I told you yesterday, I had given Sarah $8 to get Adele the robe, and I sent along the picture of the advertisement so that you might see what it looks like. It's a powder blue background with a flowered print of rose and a snowy white silk lining. I had her get me a size 6, and it is rather large. I'll have to make a large hem on the bottom and a large hem on the sleeves. It's a double-breasted style with 2 buttons on either side. I started to write the above at the office, and am continuing at home. There was your letter of November 12th waiting for me. I'd already had mail dated the 13th. And I'm sort of disappointed, for I expected a batch after waiting so long for some decent mail. Not that all your mail isn't decent, honey, but I mean up to date. Do you realize that this one is over 3 weeks old? It told me what I had known for weeks, that Eddie is back. Speaking of Eddie, reminds me that we haven't heard from him for 2 weeks. He hasn't, page 2, written once since he got back. Only calls, and that last call was made on Thanksgiving to my aunt's house. I can't understand his reluctance to see us all, but I have a funny idea he may be in the booby hatch or something, for he is insistent that we do not come to see him. It all seems very screwy to me. And if we don't hear from him darn soon, I'm going to take the trip up to Valley Forge in spite of all his requests. Gosh, but I'm anxious to see him. It's been so long I hardly remember what he looks like. Sometimes I even feel that way about you. When I got back from work, Goldie had washed the kitchen floor and prepared a nice dinner. Boy, she sure did put me to shame, for it shows what a person can do if only they understand the circumstances and are willing. Goldie was what you'd call the helpless type, but she can certainly do all right if she wants to. I'm terribly glad that she didn't let me down altogether, and I feel a lot differently toward her for it. I'd been telling her just how disgusted I am with so much responsibility, and perhaps the pep talk did some good, who knows. However, I'm not giving up my original idea of giving up this place, for I feel it will be more advantageous to us in the future. But naturally, I'm most anxious to know what your feelings are in the matter. I sure do hope some real mail will be forthcoming shortly. I find Mr. Bellet very, very petty in too many respects. The more you get to know him, the less you like him. He's a real character, and I'll have oodles and oodles to tell you about him and his business. I like the wholesale business, and I'd like very much to be in it on my own. I've learned a good deal of importance working there, and someday I hope to use it to our advantage. I do know that I want to go into a business, but first I want a fling and a rest period. Darling, I'm very much afraid that it is still very far off now, and tomorrow will be 3 years we're at war. That's a long time, honey, and I pray the worst part of it is over. You say in your letter that Adele Adele's gift was ruined in the making. I said I wouldn't tell you what I thought it was till it got here, but I'll tell you anyway. I'll bet it's something in the jewelry line, like that plexiglass piece you sent me. I have yet to buy a chain for it, and now I'm sort of hesitating, for too many people think it resembles a cross and suggest I make a pin of it. I like it very much because it's odd, and shall get a chain for it in spite of it. I guess Adele's birthday gift will have to be a Christmas present from the looks of things. I'm very glad I bought those vitamin pills, for they help me immensely. In spite of the fullness of each day, and I'm kept very busy every minute, I feel pretty good. I think I've put on a few pounds, because my face looks rounder, but I'd rather not know. If I didn't, I'll be disappointed, so I'd rather not get weighed. Miriam Brown is due to have her baby near Christmas, so I'll be having some news for you shortly. Most everyone thinks she'll have a boy. And so I think I've come to the end of another letter. I have a few things to do before I can get to bed, and how I wish you were going up with me. I love you so much, Phil. It's the same old phrase, but it will always be new to me, honey. Your Ev. Evelyn to Philip, December 7th, 1944. Dearest Phil, I'm starting this at the office, as seems to be my custom, but I shall finish it at home. I'm at a little loss for what to say, but I shall just discuss this and that. I don't think I told you that Betty's brother Abe, the one who was just released from the army, met a girl just as soon as he got back and went overboard, but good. He hopes to get married early next year. Her name is Evelyn, and she looks a bit like me. Her second name is the same as his. As he says, she won't have to change her name for me. Abe is a nice-looking fellow, and Adele took to him just as much as she takes to the rest of the family. The Feldman family in general have done more for Adele and me than any of our friends and relatives alike, and it's due to their love for Adele. I sure am grateful to them for being so nice. I don't think I've written in detail about Adele for some time, so here goes. She has been sleeping fairly well, and usually interrupts me only once. I pick her up out of her sleep before retiring myself and put her on the toddy seat to be sure she doesn't wet the bed. Her appetite has fallen off, and she doesn't eat nearly as well as she used to. She sings school days, etc., and will say anything asked of her. She has a nasty habit of hitting everyone that is most annoying, but I'm hoping that will disappear in the near future. This morning, my mother, Adele, and I went shopping on Broad Street before I went to work. Faye informed me that Blowners has no winter weight underwear, and all for the kids, and all the neighborhood stores seem to be in the same class. I hadn't tried one kiddie store on Broad Street and went there today. I managed to get one set of underwear, the button-on style that I told you about when I bought Adele summer weight underwear, and it cost me $1.35 for a shirt and panties size 6. I also bought Adele her first toothbrush, as it is time for her to start brushing her teeth. It's funny how the stores take advantage of you. One drugstore wanted 19 cents for the toothbrush, but I wouldn't take it because it looked abused and went to another drugstore. The second store charged me 10 cents for the exact same brush. Boy, did they take you over. I'm not going to buy a single thing that isn't positively necessary. If I get a bargain, okay, but if not, I'll wait till you come home and we can go shopping together. As long as we have the money, we'll always be able to get what we want. Upon arriving home, I found your letter of November 15th. That part about the girl who propositioned you tickled me. I sure do wish I could have seen your reactions. You're a real cutie sometimes. And that English sailor that Ruth brought home had the nerve to say our boys are bothering their girls. Speaking of girls, how do you like the one enclosed? She sure is chunky. Sure do wish I looked like that. Eddie called this evening and said what I had been thinking, that he is more or less in the booby hatch. He said they are very overcrowded and that he definitely does not want us to come to see him. He has hopes of being home by Christmas, and I certainly hope so. All he complains about is headaches that seem to grip him from time to time. Which reminds me, I haven't told you anything, page 2, about Ruth Shapiro, Eddie's girl. It seems he has a case on her, and she feels likewise. She's an attractive girl, an only daughter, and her mother makes all her clothes. She's a stunning dresser and is either 16 or 17 years old. She was at Adele's birthday party on Sunday. I think I told you about her then. She pals around with Ruth from time to time, and Ruth calls her sister. Eddie called her several times by phone and sent her a telegram immediately upon his return to the States. She sent Eddie many packages, and her folks like Eddie very much. Gee, but it seems funny to think that Eddie may marry someday soon. I always think of him as a kid, but he definitely is not that any longer. Clara Wagman called and read me a letter that she is sending off to you. I was rather surprised to hear that the CIO has taken over at Sharp and Dome, and I'm wondering, as you no doubt are, what effect it will have on the general organization. I am dividing my time between ironing what few pieces I have and writing this letter. It's very late, honey, and I'm literally falling asleep on the typewriter. Adele loved brushing her teeth for the first time this evening. I'm just about writ out anyway, so I'll just tell you once more that I adore you, my darling, ever so much. Phil, I want so to take you in my arms. Your Ev. Philip to Evelyn, 7 December 1944. Darling Ev, Pearl Harbor Day always brings to mind that day exactly 3 years ago when, with hearts filled with apprehension and faces blank with a mixture of emotions, we sat in the living room at 5447 Sansom Street and heard the startling, dramatic announcement of the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor over the radio. I think we both realized in that instant that it would only be a matter of time before I would be recalled to service. What thoughts, what images fleeted through our minds in those few moments. Only you and I know what we each felt then, baby. But I was just thinking, suppose we could have, on that day, known what was to transpire within the next few years. And suppose we knew that on the 3rd anniversary of that day that I would have been overseas 16 months with perhaps almost as many more to serve before returning to you. Tell me, Chippy, what would you have felt then? I won't presume to guess out loud, but I think you know that I have a pretty good idea as to that. Yet, aside from our being physically separated all this time and plagued with a great loneliness, actually, what material harm have we suffered? None, absolutely none that I can think of. You will contend, I know, that there are other kinds of harm than the purely material, and I agree. But are you very sure that those same deprivations of the spirit will not eventually bring compensations both physically and spiritually in the many years we have still to be together? I am almost sure that that will be the case. So be of good cheer, my darling, however long fate chooses to keep us apart. Never forget that however far away I am from page 2, you are always a part of me. I carry your sweet image with me in my heart constantly, and very often indeed do I look in upon it and count myself fortunate for having you. It is this image, Ev dearest, that has kept me faithful, that has kept me from seeking other, less worthy means of dispelling the monotony of my days and nights, that has led me both in thought and deed in the ways of righteousness. Believe me, baby, when I say I have yet to commit the slightest deed that might be contrary to your concepts of good behavior. You, or more truly the thought of you, are solely responsible for my blameless conduct. You must and should feel very proud, my sweet, that you inspired a love that is sufficient unto itself. I, for my part, am deeply indebted to you for kindling in me a passion that allows no digressions into waywardness. You must cherish this love that is between us, my darling, as the most precious possession you shall ever own, or even aspire to. For me, it is tantamount to a religion. I live by it and for it. Therefore, beloved Chippy, on this, the third anniversary of that world-shaking day that so changed our lives, I am still able to look to the future with the greatest confidence that all will be well with us. I consider our present separation as a period of purgatory in which we will find one day any weaknesses of character that we may have been heir to have been dissolved in the searing yet cleansing fires of loneliness and heartache. Look to the future, my wife, for it is true that we will meet once again. Be not impatient of the present. Remember that it too has its purpose. Finally, my Chippy, look to the welfare of our adored pumpkin. This is your greatest charge. Let nothing supersede it. May God keep you well, my darlings, for your Phil. Letter from Clara Wagman, co-worker of Phil's at Sharp and Dome, to Phil, dated December 7th, 1944. Dear Phil, by this time I suppose you have given up hope of hearing from me in answer to your letter. I called your Evelyn when I got your letter, and she was pleased. I told her I would write to you, and as time rolled by and I called Evelyn a couple of times and told her that I hadn't written, she scolded me and told me I had better write to you. To tell you the truth, I am not at home too often, and when I do get home, it is too late to sit down and write. Tonight I came home early, especially to write letters. I just finished a letter to my cousin in New York, and now I'll see just page 2 what I can do, or rather say, to fill up at least this sheet of paper. I suppose there really isn't too much that I can tell you that you already don't know through Evelyn. On several occasions, I've been invited up to your house for dinner, but so far I haven't been able to accept. But I will see what I can do in the near future. I told all the gang in Sharp and Dome that I heard from you, including Farron and Sussmal, also Harry Adams. We in the Label Bureau sent you a Christmas package, so I suppose when and if you do get it, you will let us know. I didn't really know what to buy for you, but I did the best I could since yours was the first Christmas package. I even got together to send across the ocean. We all hope that you can make use of page 3, everything. My brother came up on furlough from Georgia on Thanksgiving Day with his wife. He was married here in Philly on furlough May 6th and took his bride down south with him. They left yesterday morning, Wednesday, as they must be back on Friday, and since they motored up and back, they had to allow 3 days each way for traveling. Otherwise, they could have a couple of extra days, but they took their time coming up, and they will do likewise going back. And let me tell you, their car sure came in handy, as there was a bunch of stuff they took back with them. Things they need for their apartment, etc. Today is Pearl Harbor Day, and I do hope before another Pearl Harbor Day that this mess is all over and all returned safely for their homes. Page 4. It seems a long way off, but when you return to the U.S., I certainly don't think that Sharpened Dome is the place for you. So think it over between now and then. Have you heard that the CIA came into Sharpened Dome, and they sure are putting up a stiff battle trying to get all to join up with them. There was a meeting last night, but I didn't hear a thing, as I didn't sign up with them. Personally, I don't think they can do any more for me that Sharpened Dome already hasn't done, so I guess I'll leave well enough alone. Well, Phil, I see I am hitting bottom, so I'll close this letter with the kindest regards to you from me, also your friends at the Sharpened Dome plant. Clara. I hope you will pardon all the errors, as I didn't and never do reread what I write. Good luck to you. Also, I hope you don't have too much difficulty in trying to read this awful writing.